Hello and welcome. Today we're talking George Shrinks, a Canadian-Chinese television show which ran in the early 2000s and ran for about 40 episodes. Based on the children's book of the same name written by William Joyce. It was released in the United States on PBS and in Canada on the CBC. The show's main character is George Bernard Shrinks and the Shrinks family, and it's about the adventures that they go on. The name is, I guess, a play on the height of the main character. He is a minuscule human being, about yay tall, and he has a little supercar that he drives around and going on all sorts of adventures out in the woods. Kind of like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids situation, but instead it's only one character, and instead of trying to cure his ailment, they just get him to go on all these dangerous adventures in his little remote control car. Now, I have two main issues with the show. I actually liked the show growing up. I thought it was a lot of fun, but like I said, there are problems. And my first problem is the origin of George Shrinks. Now, I don't recall, and in my research, I couldn't find anything within the show that explained how George got to be so small. There's never an episode where he drinks a potion or his dad does some sort of experiment, though I do have kind of this Mandela effect thing in my mind where I vaguely remembered his dad being an inventor and somehow causing George to shrink, but that's not the case. The dad is a musician. But they never explain how George became George Shrinks. And I mean, the family name is Shrinks, which I think is really convenient. Maybe this is something that's passed on through generations. Every fourth generation, one of the children will be tiny, which would be the easiest childbirth ever. Just imagine, you probably wouldn't even know you were in labor. You'd be going to the bathroom, have to take a funny shit or a piss, I guess. I don't know. Man, the sexual education system has failed me yet again. Anyways, so I imagine that'd be the easiest childbirth ever. You'd go to sit down and go to the bathroom because you're feeling some pressure in your tubes. I don't know how the female body works. And then you squirt out a little. Imagine how small he was as a baby too. Like he's I think a teenager in the show, so he must have been like a pea. It's a miracle his mother didn't flush him down the toilet. But then. While researching, I found that in the children's book, George dreamed of being tiny, and then he woke up to find that he actually was tiny, so some stupid logic there, but there's your explanation. George dreamed himself to be tiny. Well, now that tangent's over, I'm going to be moving on to my big issue with the show. The character Becky Lopez is George's best friend. She's a regular-sized human girl, and she often accompanies George on a lot of his adventures, providing, I guess, an aerial point of view to George, or assisting him get into places that he wouldn't normally be able to get to, or helping him out of situations that he wouldn't normally be able to get out of. You know, if George perhaps was being chased by a cat in the yard and he didn't have his supercar on him, Becky would come to the rescue, and they'd hang out and do stuff together, I guess. And she was introduced in the episode Close Encounters of the Bird Kind. And this is where our problems begin. In this episode, George meets Becky. George has the supercar. As I mentioned, I probably mentioned the supercar before, but in case you haven't watched the show and don't know what it is, the supercar is a multi-purpose remote control car, or not remote control. George drives it himself. I think it was formerly a remote control car, probably. George drives around the supercar, turns into a plane, can turn into a submarine. It's basically, it helps him achieve things. And in this episode, he flies around in the supercar and meets Becky. In the episode, Supercar Caper, we see George and his father create the supercar. This is a flashback episode taking place before the creation of the supercar. And he already knows Becky. How could Becky already know George while he was creating the supercar, and then when he's meeting Becky, he already has the supercar? It doesn't make any sense. This is the kind of shit that keeps me up at night, okay? I'm fucking tired of it. Huh? Hello? Hi. Just making a video about George Shrinks. I demand that the show creators retcon this. Either the Supercar Caper episode gets remade without Becky, or the episode where George meets Becky, they need to write the supercar out. I don't know, it's just lazy writing. Like, I don't know, I think kids deserve an answer. The grown adults who are still living with this, I can't be the only one, grown adults who are living with this deserve an answer. This is the #1 cause of stress in my life. Is how the fuck is Becky meeting George while he has the supercar, but then the episode where George creates the supercar, he already knows Becky. It just doesn't add, Here's what I propose. Retcon the episode where George meets Becky. That episode is no longer canon. And then remake the episode where George makes the supercar and incorporate the storyline from the episode where George meets Becky and have that plot line also take place. So in one episode, you just gotta remake one episode. George meets Becky and makes the supercar. And while you're at it, make George a regular-sized human. And then have the creation of the supercar, maybe make it so the supercar can grow and shrink, but it's like a one-time thing, like they make a laser that can make it shrink or something. And then have George get hit by it instead. And I know this sounds like fan fiction, like one episode where you get all this shit out there, but this is what the people need. People need an explanation for these three things. They need to explain how George became shrunk. And you know what? For little side tangent. Also change the family name. Have them be George normal sizes, like George Bernard normal size, and his dad is Mr. Normal Size, his mom is Miss Normal Size, and Junior is Junior Normal Size. And then when George shrinks, they all go down to town hall and have their names changed to Shrinks in solidarity with their son George. Then later on in the episode, have them build the supercar for their now shrunken son, and while building the supercar, introduce Becky, who's like, "Whoa, where the fuck is George?" And they're like, "Oh, he's shrunk." Thank you for listening. I hope the creators of George Shrinks sees this and they respond in some capacity. Even if you just retcon it, just tweet it. Just tweet the retcon out on Twitter. I'll take it. Give me a solid George Shrinks timeline. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. I'll see you later.